I guess we're good to go now, folks. Listen, I want to just, for Joan, we're going to have to start very quickly, go through what we did in there because we've lost the recording for public. So it's only going to be 2 minutes, but we'll do it anyway. So I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Growth Committee for May 28th. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, presenters. I would caution you, though, we have a problem with audio in this room. So when somebody is at the podium, please don't talk. Okay. The only one that does any talking is people that are at the mics. I really want to stress that. Okay. So we've called the meeting to order. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes of April the 16th, 2024. Moved by the mayor and seconded by Councillor. Here we go. Harris. On the question, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for April 22nd, please? Moved by Councillor Lowe, seconded by Councillor Harris. On the question, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? So moved by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Ogden. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion is carried. Thank you. And consent agenda.
I'll move 5-1 to 5-5.
Moved by the mayor, 5-1 to 5-5. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Lowe. On the question, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion is carried. And that brings us up to 6.1, presentation by Friends of Rockwood Park. And I'd ask Councillor or Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I would now like to introduce Joan Pierce, and Ms. Pierce will be delivering a presentation on behalf of the Friends of Rockwood Park. Thank you.
So welcome, Joan. We appreciate you being here. And we'll take your presentation, 10 minutes or so, and then if there's any comments after that.
Is it still morning? Good morning, anyway.
Still morning.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. I'm representing Friends of Rockwood Park, a community group that cares passionately about one of New Brunswick's most unique civic assets. I want to preface this presentation by acknowledging that this Growth Committee and the Common Council are in a tight spot given the national housing crisis and a low vacancy rate here in St. John. We understand these are very real challenges and that you are all working really hard to doing your best to promote solutions you believe to be in the best interests of the city. In 2011, the boundaries of Rockwood Park were designated as all the city-owned land along Sandy Point Road, along Foster Thurston Drive, and along the Thruway and around Lily Lake. Where's my man who's going to be switching? Thank you. Even before that, as far back as the 1970s, the city had the foresight to establish and grow the land base of Rockwood Park. As this picture from the city's website advertises, it is a true asset, a draw for those who might move here and a point of pride for those who are from here. Did you know that far from the advertised 2,200 acres of unspoiled, quote, unspoiled natural beauty, almost a quarter of Rockwood Park has been whittled away, and there are only 1,700 acres left. A one-time cash infusion from the sale of the land won't balance the scale, and the tax base that would be established. And it is that land is worth way more than what we really think it is. It's not just real estate. Its value is much more than that. Additionally, the land, this particular spot, this land that we're dealing with, 1671 Sandy Point Road, it isn't well served by public transportation, and so rather than affordable housing, this will probably end up being luxury single-family houses, and that won't really help the housing crisis. We all want to see St. John grow and prosper, but please do not let a rush to build houses and a tax base whittle away at the edges of the parks. Future residents and future generations will need this park. Even though this land is often discussed as vacant and cleared, in fact, only 35% of the land is cleared, the red part that's shown here. This represents 4.5 acres of parkland that was cleared in 2004 without any public consultation. Since it was cleared, it has started to grow back. And you can see from the then picture and the now picture today. The other 65% of this part of Rockwood Park is forested and provides vital habitat to maintain biodiversity in the region. It includes both coniferous forest and low wetland type, right up to the edge of Harrigan Lake. It provides home and forage to birds, snakes, deer, and at least one beaver who has built a lodge on the property. And of course, it includes the very popular and recently upgraded Harrigan Lake Trail. I share this so you can update your understanding of what this parcel of land really represents. 13 acres of parkland, only 4 of which are cleared. Maintaining this parcel as forest and wetland habitat will allow wildlife, including endangered species, a refuge from our urban environment and an area to flourish. An issue that underlines Forbes' frustration. Sorry, we should have a lack of transparency there. Okay, right. An issue that underlies Forbes' frustration with the city is that we believe that the current council and those before it have not been transparent to the citizens over the future use of these Rockwood Park properties. Multiple times in the past, the city has attempted to develop and sell this particular parcel of land and then has given up due to significant opposition. During the last Save Rockwood Park campaign in 2017, a petition was received of 1,500 signatures, and the city received 123 letters from citizens opposing the sale and development of the parcel. And now a motion to surplus this property in preparation for sale and development has come out of this committee and went straight into open council with 3 councillors unable to vote and very little public notice. We are frustrated that there was no meaningful discussion and nothing to indicate why the city considered this part of Rockwood Park to be surplus, nor has there been any detailed explanation about what surplus land means. The item was not on the agenda until the start of the regular meeting. The public were never given any meaningful opportunity to discuss this item, and so seems to be a real lack of transparency surrounding the file. We believe that the decision to surplus this property was not supported by all the facts, and so we thank you for the opportunity to present and answer any questions you may have. Now you'll see these are organizations that oppose, or at least we have banded together to request certain things from the Growth Committee. I present these as requests from Friends of Rockwood Park, but please know that over the past few weeks, our group has met with 9 others who have all joined in a network of organizations that oppose the sale and residential development of Rockwood Park. So this request comes from all of us. We respectfully request that the mayor and councillors immediately rescind the motion to name 1671 Sandy Point Road surplus land when the full council is present, and restore public trust by committing to soliciting public opinion through a consultation period for every decision that has the potential to impact the environment within the boundaries of Rockwood Park. We respectfully request that the mayor and councillors within the next year or so develop a plan for the long-term preservation of the current landmass. This may involve putting all of Rockwood Park under a conservation covenant. The mayor says that 500 out of the 2,200 acres are already protected under a conservation covenant. This is only 23%. and we don't feel that that is enough. Develop a plan for 1671 Sandy Point Road. This might involve taking advantage of the sunk costs by building park facilities, or it may include reforesting some of the cleared land, which is one of the simplest nature-based climate solutions. There are several reasons why developing 1671 Sandy Point Road into a residential or commercial development is an ill-considered proposition. There are concerns that this will impact the integrity of Rockwood Park as a whole, as well as the experience of park users along the Harrigan Lake Tour de Pin and golf tracks trails. There are concerns about that having housing development in this location would cause traffic issues, as well as concern that it is unnecessary to convert parkland because there is an abundance of suitable land available elsewhere. It has been suggested by some councillors that there could be development on the already cleared portion of 1671 Sandy Point Road. However, this is not acceptable because it would involve more clear cutting and loss of forest connectivity. Currently, Rockwood Park has large areas of contiguous forest that provide a unique and critical habitat for species that require large buffers from urban influence, such as pine marten or pileated woodpeckers. It also provides excellent habitat for many species of birds, mammals, amphibians, and reptiles. By allowing development on this parcel and the removal of forest stands, the connectivity of the forest will be lost. Take a really good look at this, this pipe. The increase in the paved surfaces, if you were to develop a housing development on that particular street, sort of, the increase of water from roadways and parking lots will cause additional runoff to impact the water quality of Harrigan Lake. Right now, that culvert that you see there is bringing water from the Sandy Point Road, just from the street, and it flows into the lake. And that's been there all along, right from the time that the lot was cleared. Currently, the lake is fairly pristine, but runoff from the roadway and lawns can bring salt, hydrocarbons, fertilizers, and other contaminants into the lake, impacting the many aquatic species that live within the lake. Harrigan Lake is also connected to other waterways in Rockwood Park, and they all flow eventually into Marsh Creek. So if Harrigan Lake were to get polluted, then Marsh Creek would be, and they've just finished trying to clean up that. There is also a wetland type habitat here, which would be impacted. Wetlands are habitats are vital for both wildlife and humans because they provide the space and habitat types to support many species and provides an abundant amount of ecosystem services that benefit our society generally. Losing this forest and wetland area will result in a loss of these services, such as water purification, storm buffering, and increased water storage, carbon storage, air purification, and more than that, more that ensure our human society can thrive. Having areas for water to flow and be stored is extremely important as we continue to see more intense rain and flooding throughout the city. Environmental reasons for public opposition. Rockwood Park is home to various species at risk, and they're listed here on the slide. They may not be present within this particular parcel all the time, but the connectivity of the land to the rest of the park is important for their overall conservation. We all want to see St. John grow and prosper. Everyone in St. John wants more housing, but virtually no one wants that housing to be built on civic park land. Imagine the uproar if a quadrant of King Square or Queen Square were suddenly sold off to a developer. Many citizens are already frustrated by the giant hole right beside King Square, and we certainly don't need any empty holes at Rockwood Park. Let's enhance this parcel for public use and bring in partners, be they local cycling or runners clubs or federal agencies like Parks Canada, to help make it happen. Please do not let a rush to build houses and a tax base whittle away at the edges of parks that future residents and future generations will need. Let's work together to find a solution for all St. John citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. I appreciate you coming in, and this presentation was very well thought out, very well presented, and it gives us a lot of things to think about. So with that said, I would like to get a motion from the Growth Committee for staff to take this away and be directed to return with the report on 1671 Sandy Point Road at a subsequent meeting of the Growth Committee. Councillor Ogden, seconder. Councillor Lowe. Okay, on the question, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, you are flashing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Chair, do you not want to have a bit more of a conversation with staff at this time?
At this
'Cause
time?
I mean, I've got 6 or 7 questions here. I'm trying to suss out the facts from what I understood from staff versus what some of the stuff that's been brought up in here.
And I think that's the reason that I wanted to go back to staff, to give them a chance to look at this and reconsider or, have options.
Okay.
And because they're seeing this for the first time as we are, right? So I think that it's fair to have them come back with the report, and then you ask those questions, you'll get the answers. Right now, it's off the cuff,
Okey doke.
okay? All right? So on the question then, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, Joan. Appreciate you coming in. Okay. So the next item, 6.2.
Yeah, so David.
Okay. Okay, 6.2 then, I'd ask for David Dobbelstein to introduce that. What? Oh. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, if the Friends of Rockwood would want to leave, you're welcome to go now, or you can stay, it's up to yourself. We're going to move on in the agenda. Thank you all for coming out today. Okay, so 6.2, I'd ask Mr. Dobbelstein to introduce our next guest.
Thank you, Chair Mackenzie. Good afternoon, members of Growth Committee. As you recall, back in November of 2022, the city adopted its immigration strategy, which was also jointly adopted by our local immigration partnership, which the city is a proud member. I'm pleased to be joined by some of our colleagues at the table, colleagues see from RCEF and Vision, our co-chair, as well from the St. John Newcomer Center, and others who I think are watching through the live stream. As part of that progress update, we've invited former Chief Economist of New Brunswick, David Campbell, to come in and present both to LIP Council and this Growth Committee on how the strategy is going. Are we hitting the targets that you set? And we also had some really great news that was released by Statistics Canada last week, and I'm sure Mr. Campbell will speak about it. The city's population as of July 1 of last year is now 75,000, and we had an annual growth rate of 3.24%, with a huge chunk of that being attributed towards newcomers moving here. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. David Campbell from Jupia Consulting to share with us the Immigration Patterns Report, and as well, you'll have in your kit the sort of the snapshot of our annual report card for the immigration strategy. And with that, Mr. Campbell.
Happy to be here to present this report.
Excellent.
Which button?
You got it.
Okay, good. Your worship, good to be here again. It's good to be back in St. John. So as David mentioned, we did have some interesting numbers come out just last week. Those aren't in the report because those are brand new numbers published after I wrote the report. We did see solid growth. St. John is outpacing the rest of the region here, Rothesay, Quispam, and Grand Bay Westfield. Population growth, one-year population growth, and going back to 2019, the city has been growing faster than the peripheral communities, which is a very interesting and new trend. On the CMA level, just a couple of points. Natural population growth is still quite negative. So we had 315 more deaths than births in between July 1, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. Fredericton that gap has been eliminated. So there's as many births as deaths in Fredericton. So just a reminder that we still have some demographic hurdles that we need to overcome in this community. But certainly lots of good trends. Over 3,000 people added to the population here in the CMA. As a result of immigration and non-permanent residents in that over that year period. So in my report, I actually have some more current population estimates based on the labor force survey, because even that data there is only for last July, so it's quite delayed. So I'm going to go through this very quickly because I only have 10 minutes. So this is the report overview, the objectives, as David mentioned earlier. So on the population front. The statistics for population were delayed. We just talked about those there. But if you look at the labor force survey estimates, the population aged 15 and older increased by 3,300 or 3% between March of last year and March of this year. So that's a more current number. It is based on a survey of the population, but certainly it would indicate that we're continuing to see solid population growth here in the city and in the region across the census metropolitan area. Over the 2-year period, the estimated population is up by 6,300 or 5.6%. And that's actually just slightly under the average for all metropolitan areas across the country. So certainly good trends, certainly bucking the sort of trends we've seen in the past for this community and region. The workforce itself, so that's the people working or looking for work, increased by 6,800 people between March of 2022 and March of 2024. So over that 2-year period, we saw 10% growth in the size of the workforce. So certainly that's a very, very good news trend. Now, a lot of those jobs are in the public sector, healthcare and education, and I think the head of economic development is in the room, so we need to obviously work on private sector growth as well. So we don't have any good data on, or completely accurate data on the share of immigrants in the St. John workforce since the 2021 census. We have some pieces of data. We certainly have it at the provincial level. There's 10,000 more immigrants in the workforce between February of 2024 and in just the last year, between February of 2024 and February of 2023, and that doesn't include all the temporary workers. So if you add in all of the students working, all of the spouses of students and temporary workers, there's probably about twice that many immigrants in the New Brunswick workforce. So there's about 600 persons in the St. John CMA on postgraduate work permits, so that's up significantly. I'll show you a chart on that in a second. There's very few, only about 120 in the CMA, temporary foreign workers on what are called positive labor market impact assessments. So if you think of fish plant workers and other workers where they have to do those impact assessments, there's not a lot of those folks working here in the St. John CMA. We do, as I said, have an indeterminate amount of students and spouses in the workforce. So that's the population trend. Again, we won't discuss this any further, except to say that's a very positive trend just in the last few years since about 2019. And that's the growth compared to some other urban centers across the country. So as I said before, St. John has been growing at about the average level of growth across the rest of the CMAs in the country. Moncton, Halifax, Fredericton have been growing considerably faster, Edmonton very fast as well. That's the employment growth by industry, and I went back a few years because these are surveys and the data can be a bit variable from year to year, but if you look at a longer term trend, you see what's happening in terms of employment by industry, and again, good growth in the construction workforce, which is very needed, but healthcare and education also had very strong growth in the workforce. So let's talk about immigration and non-permanent residence trends. These numbers come from IRCC, and they're right up to the end of 2023, and even we've got a little bit of data into 2024. So we had a record number of permanent residents admitted to the St. John CMA in 2023. There was 1,780. Most of those were in the city. You'll see that in a minute. And then if you look at just the first 2 months so far in 2024, we've already had 515 admitted to the St. John CMA, which would put us on pace for about 3,000 permanent residents admitted this year. This just shows you a little bit of a breakdown by what category. Nothing outstanding there. Most across the province, most permanent residents do come via the provincial nominee program. St. John attracts a larger share than most in terms of refugees and privately sponsored refugees, which is interesting. Lead the province in privately sponsored refugees. PR admissions from 41 different countries, so continuing this trend of a diverse population moving to the city and the region. India, Nigeria, and the Philippines are the top 3 countries, and we've got a breakdown in the report of the other countries as well. French-speaking immigrants accounted for 11% of the total. There was about 200 in total that claimed French as a spoken language in 2023. That's up from only 40 back in 2018, so positive trend there. And then the sectors that the permanent residents are being admitted under, so the occupation attached to the newcomer, food service, IT, healthcare, and financial and administrative services are the top groups, and that's detailed in the report. That's just a chart showing the trend. Again, we had the dip down during the pandemic year, but we've seen a big increase since, and again, as I mentioned, a record year for permanent resident admissions in 2023. If you break that down relative to population size, and you'll see this discussed in the report. So this is, from a historical perspective, very, very good numbers. So that's 131 newcomers per 10,000 population. But relative to a lot of your peers, that's still on the lower end. Pretty close to Fredericton, well below Moncton, Summerside, Charlottetown, and Halifax. Some would argue that these other areas are having maybe population growth that's a little bit outside the bounds of what is sustainable. And we can certainly talk about that. This data here shows by the municipality, the number of permanent resident admissions by municipality. You'll see that 95+% indicated the city as their intended destination. I will say that when newcomers get here, they end up going where they find appropriate housing or for other reasons. So they may end up in the other communities, some of them, but the vast majority of them stated they were intended to settle in the city of St. John. That's the number of work permit holders under postgraduate employment. This is becoming a major way that newcomers stay. They graduate from our college and universities, and they get a postgraduate work permit for 1 or 2 years, and then they stay and work toward permanent residency. So these numbers are ticking up significantly here in the St. John area. But still relatively small share, again, compared to, say, Moncton, which there were 49% of all of the postgraduate work permit holders were in the Moncton area as of December of 2023, followed by the city of the St. John metro area and then the Fredericton area. And all of these are detailed, of course, in the report. On the international student side, which is another target we'll talk about in a minute, there were 1,595 international student permits issued for the St. John CMA. a record by a wide margin for this region. Again, good news, those are flowing into the university, the college, and even into high school. There were 560 issued for secondary, so still a lot going to our high schools. That's up 78% compared to 2022. There's 590 in the college sector and 425 for the university sector. And the report breaks down where they're coming from, and then there's some data actually directly from UNB St. John. That's the breakdown by year, so again, ticking up nicely on an annual basis. And that's the distribution by urban center around the province. Again, Moncton first here, followed by Fredericton and St. John in third place with 15% of all international study permits issued in 2023. So just a couple of slides on retention, and then we'll talk about your targets. So the problem with retention is that most of the data is lagged because it's based on tax filer data. So they're trying to publish data on Medicare card issuances and other things, and I haven't seen anything more recent. But if you look at the Stats Canada data, which is based on CRA tax filings, so if I filed my tax here in 2022 and then I filed my tax in Ontario in 2023, I would be showing up as an interprovincial migrant from the perspective of the newcomer. And you will see here that the one-year immigrant retention rate for those admitted in 2021 was 66%, and that's quite low compared to your peers across the country. The three-year retention rate, so those that were admitted in 2019 and were still here as of the time of their 2022 tax filing, that's just under 55%. And again, that's relatively low compared to your peers, but higher than what we're seeing in the Moncton area. And that's a chart just showing how that compares. Very few, if any, actually none, urban centers across the country are hitting that 90% retention target that you guys have set for yourselves. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Certainly there's room for higher retention. I don't think we should be too extremely stuck on retention. Some folks are coming here even from central Canada because they hear it's quicker to get their PR in New Brunswick. So we're seeing a lot of that. I talked to Dan Mills, the Deputy Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor. So we just have to be a little bit understanding of what's going on in the marketplace. We want to have as high retention rates as possible, but we don't want the federal government to, or even the provincial government to start restricting the inflow because of a perceived low level of retention. And that's just the breakdown of the two-year retention rate for St. John, Moncton, Halifax, and St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Those are detailed in the report. That's the three-year retention rate as well. So now let's talk about your targets. So it's my understanding your immigrant settlement target is 2,362, and I think, is that by 2030? Is that the target? Yeah, right. So as I mentioned earlier, we had a record level 1,780 in 2023, and we're on track to probably hit closer to 3,000 this year unless something gets derailed. So you'll probably hit that target well in advance of 2030. So I think that's fair to say. So if it's not this year, it'll probably be next year. Again, unless something changes in the broader environment that negatively impacts that number. In terms of Francophone immigration, so IRCC reported, as I said, 200 in 2023. So the trend there is hitting up. So hitting the 20% target by 2030 certainly would be achievable based on the trajectory that we have seen. So we have to continue to work on attracting folks that speak French if we want to hit that 20% target, but the trends are certainly in a positive direction. Increase the number of international students enrolled, achieving 25% of local enrollment. So IRCC, we talked about that. So the bottom line is UNB St. John is close to the target in 2023, and it's 2023-2024 enrollment, 23% of all the students were outside Canada. And as of now, I haven't received the numbers from the community college campus. So we have seen a big increase, as you saw earlier, but as a share of the total population here in St. John, I don't think it's close to the 25% level, but certainly trending in the right direction. We've seen a big increase in the number of international student work permits for the college sector. Increase the number of international students retained at 50% of the total. And this is more problematic. We can get at this data from the census, so we will have better data when the 2026 census comes out on this, because they actually publish data on retention by pathway into Canada, and one of those pathways is international student. But we have a much higher challenge getting that information between the census periods. We do know from the data I talked about earlier that the retention data published by Stats Canada does have pre-admission experience, and that includes studying and or working. And we know from that data that folks that actually come here first and actually study or work here first have a much higher retention rate than those that just get their permanent residency and then move to St. John. So, and there's more detail on this in the report, but among those arriving in St. John in 2019, those with pre-admission experience have a 61% retention rate compared to only 50.6 retention among those without. So that's over 10 percentage points higher retention if they get a chance to come here first, kick the tires, get to know the community, study here, or work here before they actually apply for permanent residency. So that indicates to me we should be doing as much as possible to get folks to come here first before they achieve their PR. Achieve an annual immigrant retention rate of 90% by 2030. So as I sort of insinuated earlier, that's a very, very high bar. We may have to revisit that, depending on what you mean by 90%, so there might be different definitions of that. But at the end of the day, you know, if you look across the country, very few communities, with the possible exception of the largest communities like Vancouver, do hit the 90% one-year retention rate. No CMA achieved a 90% retention rate over 3 years. So it's unlikely that we would be able to hear in the St. John CMA. I think something around 65%, we might even be able to stretch to 70% might be more realistic. And a lot of that does come down to who's coming here and why are they coming here to begin with. Are they attached to the workforce? Do they have a job that matches their skills, education, and interests? And if all of those things are true, if they have strong immigrant settlement support, there's lots of data nationally to suggest that immigrant settlement support is also correlated with retention. So if they have the support, if they have the jobs, if their families settle here and are happy here, there's a high retention opportunity. But I think 90% is a little bit high. So that's my presentation. Now I'm happy to answer any questions unless I've dramatically went over my time.
Thank you very much, David. Is there any question? Councillor Ogden?
Yeah, David. When I look at demographics, I look at the makeup of poll numbers. For instance, Moncton and Fredericton make higher wages and more benefits. And when you said, there's a couple things you said was, we have far more deaths than we have births, which is internal. But another thing you said was, if we want higher retention rates, it's better to get them here before they go to school. And we only have 2,100 university students here. Now, I brought this up with Envision St. John. We're going into our 4th year, and I still don't think they have the answer of what I'm talking about. We keep talking about our healthcare initiative at UNB St. John, which is really good. And we have, I know, being associated with the university for 45 years, there was a lobby effort to get the MBA program, which is very successful. Recently, we just got a social work degree, which a lot of us wanted to. It made sense with a high poverty rate. And it's the first time we've had an full education degree where for decades, we all drove to Fredericton because they have 2 education degrees, which to me, that was very unfair since we are the tax generator. Now, what I'm worried about is with the 2,100, and that actually shrunk, Moncton's sitting around 8,000 or 9,000 because they have 3 universities and 2 community colleges. You're from Moncton, you know that. You see the success up there. We're a very different kettle of fish down here. And I'm not sure if your stats really reveal what we're dealing with on a daily basis, like high child poverty rates and things like that. Fredericton's up around 11,000, Halifax around 33,000, Charlottetown, Sydney around 9,000. So we are by far the smallest university center. And in your presentation, you said if we want to attract and retain, we've got to get younger people, younger time. We're not doing a good job in this city. I was hoping Envision St. John would take that challenge up and it hasn't happened. I think we do a good job with community college, but with us generating this much tax dollars, it comes down to a sense of fairness, and that's our number one priority with the Higgs government is we don't keep our industrial tax, and we have the largest industrial base east of Hamilton. So there's no way that Moncton and Fredericton should be as wealthy as we are, yet we're much poorer. So when you present your stats, I think you have to look at the breakdown of the stats that we on the street every day see.
Yeah.
And because when you have a university, that has a cultural effect and a role effect
Yep.
of other people going to university. And so I think when you look at those stats, you have to look at, like, we have a river system in the bay. Nobody in Canada except for Vancouver has that. We have some great advantages here, but we've got to have the courage to look at our disadvantages.
Yeah.
And one of them is the university thing and the makeup of our population and age.
Yeah.
And that's where I would like to see Envision St. John become more creative by going after, a number of years ago, we were going to have an MIT. And some people at the university level fought against that, but that would have helped St. John.
Yeah.
So I think when you give your presentations, you got to look at it from a St. John point of view.
Yep.
We know Moncton's doing well. They have 2 federal cabinet ministers, best friend of Justin Trudeau. I mean, that's one of the growth. We've lost 4,000 or 5,000 federal jobs. They've gained 5,000.
Yeah.
And then our money goes to Fredericton. So I think you have to also look at the economics and what the wealth distribution is.
So this report had a very discrete mandate. I am familiar with the other data that you're suggesting. St. John has one of the lowest ratios of post-secondary enrollment to population in the country, actually, not just in New Brunswick. And province-wide, we actually have the ratio of population ratio of workforce to enrolled post-secondary college and university is as low now as it was 20 years ago, even though we have huge demands because of all the retirees. So I don't know what's going on in post-secondary education. We should have a lot more enrolled in PSC. I lean a little bit more toward college, because if you pump up university too much and they can't be attached to the labor market, they may just leave anyway. So you really need alignment. Right, and we need construction workers now, so we need to pump up that end of it. So we just need to make sure you have a very good alignment between, my short answer to your question is absolutely. There should be several thousand more students enrolled here, but they should be aligned with workforce demand or you'll lose them anyway, right? So Crandall University has 500 people enrolled in a management program or something, a master's degree. So it's fine while they're in the city because they're spending money and it's an economic generator there, but how many of those 500 are going to stay in the city with their master's degrees? Anyway.
Gentlemen,
Sorry.
we're going to have this conversation.
Yeah.
We'll have to
No,
come
sorry. We
around
can talk
too,
offline. I'd be
because
happy to
We're at
chat
5
with you
minutes
offline.
now, very not 3.
We're
So I'm
trying to
gonna-
get to our problems, though,
I'm
Mr.
I'm going to let Councillor Harris have a shot, and I'll come back to you, okay? Because we're 3 minutes each. and
Yeah, I
you're at
apologize
5.
for that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming today and sharing this. I have a couple of questions. Around this international student piece, it's generated a lot, and I hear the point that both of you are making around students. I mean, in my trade, in my sector, yeah, I need another 60 general contractors here swinging hammers to make homes. There's just no way around it. And despite efforts to increase some of that, there's been very little creativity around how we train and how we do apprenticeship. But that's a whole provincial conversation that I'd love to have someone have with us that I know you're not here to do. But around the international student piece that you talked about, why should we be trying to increase the international student population here to a larger extent than what we are when we're seeing a lot of conversations really point to that being one of the incubators for a housing crisis? And we certainly had international students here who actually had to use our shelter system at one point in time this year. So I find it difficult to look at that as a leading, a leading stat to try to increase when we've already got problems with them.
So the short answer to that is, as an economist, I can make statements that when you guys face challenges on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, if you're going to bring in more international students, you got to have places to house them. So you either build more housing for them or you find new ways to billet them in existing homes or whatever. But absolutely, There's no doubt that across the country, the increase in international students has exacerbated the housing crisis. I'm just saying in the long run, if you want to grow your economy, if you want to grow your population in a sustainable way, you're better off bringing them in here as students or temporary workers because the retention rates are higher among that group. But you're absolutely
I see
right.
it.
If you can't house them,
Yeah.
it's very, very difficult to bring them. I mean, Cape Breton, it's been probably the worst in the country.
Yeah.
They brought in 7,000 or 8,000 international students, and there was nowhere to put them. So
Yep.
they were, 6 to a room type stuff.
And perfect, thanks for clarifying that. And then for my second part, you don't talk about this, but I'll tell you, it's a conversation that has very different opinions around this table on it. And that is the question around the tie from tax rate to population growth. There are some around this table who believe that the only way to get a good growth rate is to jettison the tax rate, right? And I get it, lots of people are frustrated at how much taxes they pay. But we also see a number of areas of our city life that just don't measure up to what is expected of sort of a modern urban setting, whether that be active transportation use, whether that be walkability, housing demand, pieces like that, neighborhood development, infill and whatnot. So I guess my question is around that. How much do you see is there a missing link here between our tax rate, the tax bills? Because I mean, the city's already underassessed in many ways compared to what Moncton or Fredericton would be assessed at. So you have to take that into consideration. I just didn't see any mention of that, so I don't know if you encounter any of that as is there a penalty or a multiplier that gets attributed to our growth potential because our tax rate is higher, even though our assessments are lower? And what does that interplay look like?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the property tax bill here, as a share of income, it's not particularly high. The rates are higher, but assessments are lower. So if you really want to grow the city's revenue, you just keep squeezing the housing and attracting lots of people, and then you'll just, right? So, but that's not a sustainable long-term solution, because you erode one of your top advantages, which was reasonably priced housing. So what you really need to be doing is growing the housing stock to meet the population growth. And because you haven't had much population growth in the city for 25 years, you don't necessarily have the capacity to grow. And I think you insinuated that earlier. And the presentation earlier, there's always going to be pressure on where you actually put that housing. So I don't have a great answer to you, except to say right now, your tax bill as a share of average household income isn't particularly higher than anywhere else.
Okay.
Water bill's a little higher. I was looking at those numbers just last week. I don't know why your water bill's slightly higher.
Energy's a little lower, though. That's our
Energy's
nice
a little lower.
advantage.
There you go. So it offsets. But it should not be a barrier. People
Right.
will move to this city if it's perceived to be a great place to live. And a great place to raise family and a great place to and the population growth numbers are looking good.
Right.
So people are making that decision to move here. So I would say this is a positive trend, what we're seeing. It's good news for the city. Council has to buckle down and do what it needs to do. And this is why I love municipal government. It's my favorite level of government, because you're closest to the people, but you deal with all of these issues on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, listen, David, thanks very much for coming in.
Sure, and I'm
we'll
happy to
comment.
chat with anybody offline about any of this, so,
Okay, sounds great. Thanks very much.
sure.
Okay. Motion to receive for information? Okay, second. On the question, all in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. 6.3, St. John Trade and Convention Center, and can you introduce me?
Yes.
Okay, over to you, Amy.
Thank you, Deputy, and members of the Growth Committee. Under the reporting policy for agencies, boards, and commission, and the conditions of receiving the municipal funding, organizations are to submit their annual reports and associated financials for information. So we have 3 organizations today who will speak to their annual reports. And the last ABC, the Transit Commission, they'll be reporting at our next Growth Committee meeting. So the first one today is St. John Trade and Convention Center. And I would like to introduce Lisa Porter. She is attending virtually on behalf of the Trade and Convention Center. And I'll hand it over now to Ms. Porter. Thank you.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing. I'm very pleased to be here today to showcase our 2023 year to you. As we know, the Trade and Convention Center is the largest convention center in the province. It is an economic engine for the region, bringing delegates from all over the world to experience our region firsthand. It is also an excellent trade show venue for regional, national, and international businesses. It also showcases as a versatile facility for not-for-profit and fundraising events that benefit regions of the area. It plays a key part of the region's infrastructure for large-scale sporting events such as World Curling, TELUS Cup, Canada Games, NEM Cup, Para World Cup, just to name a few. It also serves as a home to multiple gymnastics, dance, and cheerleading events each year, providing opportunities for the region's youth. I can't see the slides, but I'll keep going. The next review is to talk about our drafted financial results for 2023. As you can see, we were budgeted to operate in a deficit of $243,297, and we ended strong, finishing simply, we actualized only a loss of $34,576. So we did end stronger than anticipated. So how did we do that? So in 2023, we actually had a pickup in lead volume in the year for the year. We also had return of annual events such as Rockmore Nursing Home Gala, the Dance Quest, Christmas parties, etc. The expenses under budget were due to unplanned wage subsidies and shortage of parts for planned building maintenance. The salaries and benefits were under budget due to vacant positions and with the strategy to hire as we ramp up for that continuation. And we also completed building repairs and maintenance, refrigeration, washrooms, and lighting. Next slide, please. As you can see, the financial forecast for 2024 for Q1, January to March, this is a good news story. We are ahead of budget to date, and our revenues are in line with our expectations. As you can see, we actualized $104,555, and our year-to-date versus budget was $39,537. So when you take the gross profit, the payroll, taxes, benefits, and the other expenses, we ended Q1 70.9% year-to-date versus our budget. Correct. So how did we do that? So some of the key events that we held in 2024 were the Canadian Bar Association of New Brunswick, the Fundy Gymnastics Club, the Progressive Conservative Party of New Brunswick Leaders Dinner, the Maritime Water and Wastewater Association, and most recently we held in May the Canadian Home Builders Association. Looking ahead to the remainder of the year, we are looking, of course, at welcoming the Port of St. John Port Days, the Royal Canadian Legion in August, the PMAC Asset Management Association, as well as the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada in October, and November, the PGA of Canada Atlantic Merchandise Show. Capital expenses for 23 and 24 were the LED lighting enhancements in the Great Hall that was completed in the fall of 23. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Council, any questions? Councillor Lowe?
Is this presentation done? I mean, I find it hard to follow this because we never seen it until we walked in the door. And, you know, like, I've been in business before in my life, but the lady up there is doing it. And, you know, it'd have been so much nicer if we could have seen this and we could have picked things that we wanted to ask this lady. Nothing. I'm trying to follow her, right? I've been trying to follow all of it. And it's totally ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I got one interest in the Trade and Convention Center. You want me to stop her? You're looking at me kind of
I think
strange.
city manager wants to speak to it. About the
And I
delay.
tell you what I want? I want to make sure that we as a city rent from these people 100% of the time if we can, because we pay the deficit. And, you know, and things have happened over the other years where we're in different organizations, right? And we're paying money out, and it's the same as the food. You know, we got to start looking after our own. And that's when I'm, like she said, any questions? I don't know if we're done this. But, you know, nobody in this room I know have had a chance to look at this.
Well, let's let the city
Oh, it's
manager
okay.
respond.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the kit was issued last night with respect to the template, but the presentation, I think, is new. It's not part of the kit, so that is something it isn't, it's in the kit? Okay, I didn't see it in the kit here, but, okay. But on that point, we have had discussions in terms of getting the kit out sooner. Counselor, I think that's something we've identified as a gap in terms of, particularly when it follows a council meeting, there's a need to ensure that we target these on an off week of council, because otherwise it gets caught up with the rest of the council kit. So duly noted. And in terms of, you know, actually using the space, I think there was a great step forward this year in terms of the state of the region using the space, whereas in the past it was done at the Delta Hotel. So that's a great step forward, and I know that's something that all of the regional facilities are mindful of with all of the regional municipalities.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd say that, you know, to Councilor Lowe's point, I didn't see it till I got home from council last night because of the delay, and if I hadn't looked at my email, I would have been in the same position. But anyway, going forward, we'll have a better understanding. Is there any other comment or no? Okay, having said that, Lisa, thank you very much for your presentation. And
Thank you, everyone.
being here today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's move on to 6.4, Canada Games Aquatic Center. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Deputy and members of Growth Committee. The next ABC to report here this afternoon is Canada Games Aquatic Center. And now I'd like to introduce Amy McLennan, who will be delivering the presentation on behalf of that group. Thank you.
Welcome, Amy.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Growth Committee. I would like to acknowledge as well that the Chair of our St. John Aquatic Center Commission is in attendance, Ms. Amy Shanks. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. And I would like to begin, as always, with a summary of the services that the Aquatic Center provides for the community. And the facility is well known for its pools and the many activities that take place in our aquatic spaces. This includes swimming lessons that teach a life-saving skill that is of particular importance, of course, in a region surrounded by waterways. But in fact, the Aquatic Center earned the Life Saving Society's Affiliate Recognition Award for operating the largest life-saving program in New Brunswick last year. And as listed on this slide, there are also a great many other offerings for the community, and that includes everything from first aid training and birthday parties to a fully equipped fitness center with a functional training studio. And the variety allows us to ensure that there's something for all ages and abilities to enjoy. So of note is that the Aquatic Center also provides a great many services beyond the walls of the facility. Of course, this includes lifeguarding at beaches throughout the region, so 6 in total, as well as providing swimming lessons and lifeguarding services for the Qplex, which many aren't aware they are provided by the Aquatic Center. And additionally, specifically for 2023 only, the Aquatic Center provided supervision for the inaugural season of the Quispamsis Firefly Park Splash Pad. And of course, those are all done on a contract basis. And I'm very excited to announce that new for 2023, a community access program was developed and launched. And it's recognized there are many people in our region that face significant financial challenges. And although we work hard to keep our membership rates and admission rates as reasonable as possible, many are still not in a position to afford costs associated with recreational activities. So there are wonderful programs in place, such as Pro Kids for children and youth. But this new program assists everyone from seniors members who may be on a fixed income but enjoy the social aspects of engaging in activities at the Aquatic Center, or families who would like the opportunity to have a recreational swim together, or newcomers looking to connect with the community. So the goal is to ensure everyone has the ability to access the wellness and recreation opportunities available at the Aquatic Center, regardless of their financial barriers. It's done through an application process, and we ensure eligibility based on household income, and that also aids in determining subsidization levels. So there were a lot of other exciting initiatives that happened in 2023. A Swim to Survive swimming lessons program for students in grades 3 to 5 was piloted in the spring. It was very well received, and a second session took place in the fall, and work with the schools is ongoing to secure funding for future sessions. That's done during the regular school day. And compared to swimming lessons, the Swim to Survive program really focuses on survival skills primarily. So that's treading water, recovering from disoriented entry. And in addition to the schools, through a partnership with ProKids and the Nick Nicole Community Center, we were also able to do a session of evening classes that provided Swim to Survive for 30 vulnerable youth in the community. Another initiative that was related specifically to swimming lessons was the introduction of electronic report cards along the lines of continuous improvement. So these were implemented as a more efficient, environmentally friendly, and of course cost-effective method for communicating lesson outcomes. Water safety presentations were given by the Aquatic Center at local schools to increase awareness of the importance of safety in and around the water. And the Aquatic Center was also proud to join the community action team for the Planet Youth Project. For those who aren't aware, that's a 5-year pilot project that it's designed to reduce youth substance use by creating healthy environments, which originated in Iceland. An initiative that received national coverage was our Grey Watch program, which focused on recruiting older adults to participate in lifeguard certification training. And I'm proud to say that all three, through that initial group, are current employees of the Aquatic Center. Community swim days also took place periodically throughout the year. So these were designated public swims that received corporate sponsorship, and that allowed us to have children and youth attend for just a toonie. That support is incredibly important in ensuring that we maintain the revenue from those swims, but that it also allows more people in the community to attend, particularly those with larger families. In 2023, grants were secured to allow for the purchase of new spin bikes for the fitness center, as well as for a chairlift to improve access to pools for those with mobility challenges. The Aquatic Center also organized and hosted training through the Canadian Aquatic Rehab Institute last summer, which was attended by individuals working in the field of physiotherapy, as well as by Aquatic Center employees. And planning for future training is currently underway. Throughout the year, a variety of marketing campaigns were also undertaken, simply to increase general community awareness of the facility and its amenities. In marketing the facility, a particular focus has been placed on the importance of the Aquatic Center in supporting sports tourism in the region. It results in significant spin-off for the local economy, and in 2023, the facility hosted a total of 11 major events. That's up from 8 events the previous year, and they're listed on these slides. As you can see, they're spread out throughout the year. And in addition to the events, there was a U.S. competitive swim camp that took place in December to help support and develop New Brunswick competitive swimmers. And moving over to audited financial statements, you'll note that 2023 ended at approximately $8,000 under budget, but I'll speak to a few specific variances. Public swims, drop-ins, and membership revenues were up significantly. That can be attributed to a variety of advertising and marketing initiatives to increase awareness of facilities' amenities, and probably specifically the fact that it is home to a complete fitness center and can be used as one's choice for a gym. Revenue from swim instruction also increased significantly. 5-week mini sessions were introduced to complement our regular 8-week sessions. So that not only increased revenue, but it provided more options for participants. Additional grants, fundings, and sponsorships were received, not only for equipment, as previously mentioned, but also for the 1-year contracted resource and for programming in general. I'd like to note that the actuals in the audited financial statements that would have been submitted earlier in the year For 2022, it would have included $250,000 in COVID relief funding recognized under the revenue line, just in case those two lines are being compared. Revenue from massage services did come in under budget. It was partially offset by a decrease in overall expenses for that area. And the target was ambitious, but work continues to rebuild our client base there. And we actually just recently welcomed on a new registered massage therapist. Building maintenance and equipment repairs are another item that came in over budget, with significant repairs required to the boilers in particular. And so this budget area is an ongoing risk, particularly with aging infrastructure. So we can have a lot of unpredictable costs, unfortunately, associated with that. In summary, inflation and increased facility usage impacted expenditures for various goods and services, but expenses overall were offset by increases in revenue to allow the year to close on budget. I just wanted to include this slide to provide historical context, and I have shown it in previous presentations. The graph illustrates the approved subsidies for the Aquatic Center over the last few years, indicated by the blue line, in comparison to the actual cost of operations in orange. And you'll note that despite negative impacts resulting from the pandemic, operations did come back on budget for 2022 with the assistance of the COVID relief funding, and that funding is included in the subsidy amount that's noted in the table at the bottom of the slide. And as previously noted, last year came in on budget as well. This last slide has been included simply to provide a list of our current members of the St. John Aquatic Center Commission. And the composition includes volunteers that are appointed from various municipalities, as well as ex officio members. And I would just like to conclude by noting that 2023 was an incredibly positive year for the Aquatic Center in terms of growth. Recognition of the facility's importance to the overall community appears to have increased, as well as the knowledge of its importance in attracting, retaining residents, and its significant role in supporting sports tourism. Not only did the Aquatic Center provide life-saving swimming lessons to thousands of people last year, trained lifeguards throughout the region, kept beaches safe, and serves as a community center for everyone to enjoy. Recreation amenities such as the Aquatic Center are a key contributor to growth, prosperity, and overall quality of life. It's an incredible privilege for us to be able to serve the people of the Fundy region, and I really appreciate your time today to talk about some of the initiatives we've been working on. That concludes my presentation, pending any questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. Yes, Councilor Ogden?
Wonderful, wonderful job, and it's just a great success story, and I want to thank you and your board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Councilor Lowe?
To think of what I could follow, you're doing a great job. But I remember, and actually when the Americans come here, you can't get a room at the Hilton, and you can't even get in the pool over there. That's another thing. But I remember a couple of years ago, they were saying that they were building a pool as big as yours in New Hampshire, and a lot of the tournaments would stay in New Hampshire instead of, because they're always coming here in St. John. Did they build that pool?
There was a pool built, and there is discussion of Maine State, that major championship still returning to St. John. They enjoy traveling up to St. John simply for the aspect of travel. But regardless of that, whether they return or not, you know, the major events that we're seeing are continuing to grow just within our own region.
I mean, the economic benefit from taxis in the restaurants and the Hilton, and people go, I mean, people stay in the hotel like to eat outside, and you can see that in Tandy's and the boardwalk and out there. It's unbelievable what they bring to town. And you know, you can see the cars in the parking lot with, you know, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. It's such a draw. It's unbelievable. And people don't realize that, I don't think, what it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Your Worship?
Thanks very much. Thanks, Amy. I just want to also say thank you to you and your team, Amy Shanks over there, for being here today, and also for the work that you are doing over there, because I know the Aquatic Center has been, I mean, it had a glorious initial start in '86, and then it's kind of fallen off the radar for the city. And, you know, you and your team are really working to bring that back. I mean, it's located in the heart of the uptown area. It makes sense to have, you know, whatever we can in there, because there are really no gyms uptown, et cetera. And I know your space is limited, but I mean, you do offer something different than the regular gym would offer. So it's nice to see that and all the other amenities that are happening, you know, your lifeguards, et cetera. So it's, and I know we always have a deficit with it, but you know, it's not as burdensome, I guess, for the city when we see that progress happening, when we see it, you know, being innovated, when we see things moving, when we see it being used. So it's great to see all that. And I just wanted to say thanks for all the work you've done.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Harris?
Yeah, just to add to the good news, I've certainly been there. I haven't been there in the past 3 months, but just seeing some of the changes as I've brought in the kids, the blue slide alone getting redone and the new arms put on it. Yeah, big deal for them. And, but yeah, it's starting to really come around. You can see some of the differences that are just where things are placed, how they're picked up, how they're cleaned and tidied. So yeah, thanks for all your work and thanks to your team.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. I guess I'm going to make it unanimous, Amy. I mean, been around for a while, and since the two Amy's have taken over, things have really turned around, and we're very proud of what you've done and all the significant increases in memberships and services. And I know I had two kids that swam with the Tide swim team, and so they, you know, keep an eye on that, which is nice. But they do, as to Councillor Lowe's point, bring in a lot of people into the city when you have the pool in use. So I want to thank you very much for coming today and bringing the good news.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Move to receive and file, a second? Oh,
Just make one suggestion
yeah.
to Brent. In the 80s, we had a thing called a major tournament committee that came out of building the Aquatic Center and our Canada Game Stadium. And they brought in about 4 or 5 years, they brought the NBA in, the original AHL, 2 CFL games, Croatia versus Canada. I worked them all. Croatia versus Canada in soccer, Scotland versus Canada in rugby. These were all on TSN. And it was a group of individuals, no politicians, and it was called the Major Tournament Committee. And they were highly, highly successful. And a lot of them are gone now, but they said there started to become political interference, and they all walked away. But in about 6 years, everybody in Halifax, Moncton were saying St. John was the tournament place to come to in all Atlantic Canada. And I'm just wondering if there's a chance that we could restore a major tournament committee and to do that, because we were extremely successful. We had control of the Canada Game Stadium at that time, and the university does now, and they don't offer a lot of those things. So could you look into that?
City Manager?
Yes, so that sort of event planning is something that's largely done by Envision now, you know, through former Discover SJ and now folded in as part of Envision. And so they do that sort of thing with involvement or support of us from time to time, depending upon the event. So we are always looking at those opportunities, and I know they're involved in actively pursuing some now.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so with the questions on the floor, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any. Motion's carried. Okay, thank you very much, Amy. Okay, 6.5, St. John Free Public Library, and over to you, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy and members of the Growth Committee. I'd now like to introduce Laura Korskaden, and she will be delivering a presentation on behalf of the St. John Free Public Library.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Laura Korskaden. I'm the Library Director for the St. John Free Public Library. I apologize, I'm losing my voice a little bit because we actually had Comic-Con at the library this past weekend. So I was a little bit overworked, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So just to start, I'm sure you guys are all aware that we're very proud of our libraries here in St. John, as we're the first free public library in Canada, established in 1883. Of course, we look a lot different than we did in 1883. We started in a little room up in the top end of the market up on Charlotte Street. But now we have our 3 locations in Market Square, the West Branch in Lancaster Mall, and of course our East Branch Library as well. And as you can see, we've got quite a long and rich history of serving our St. John community. And we're constantly adapting to suit to develop our services to better suit our community. So as I mentioned, libraries have changed quite a bit. We're not only a place of education and learning and academia, but we're also a gathering place for everybody in our community. And we're very proud to be one of the last free places that people can come and spend the entire day. You don't have to buy anything. Everything that we offer to our community is, of course, free for everyone to enjoy with the help of you. So thank you so much for all of your support for our libraries. 2023 was a fantastic year for our libraries. And as a librarian, I'm a bit of a data and information nerd, so I thought I'd share some of our KPIs with you guys. Our library visitors is the one thing that I always keep a close eye on, how many people are actually coming through our doors each year. In 2022, we had just under 150,000 people come to our libraries. In 2023, just under 190,000 people. So our numbers are constantly going up, which is really a fantastic thing to see. New library patrons, when we talk about that, that is the people who are registering for a new library card. So they're new to our libraries, they're coming and they're signing up for a library card to use our services. In 2022, we had 2,800 people sign up for library cards. Last year, we had 3,500 people sign up for library cards. So lots of new people coming into our libraries, not just our regular people who we see every single day. We're getting lots of new people coming in, which is fabulous. Another thing that we do quite a bit is offer programs. So free programs to our community. We offer, of course, when you think of libraries, you think of story time and book clubs and author readings. Of course, we do that, but we offer a wide variety of other programs as well. Technology help, resume writing workshops. We offer a lot of programs for newcomers. We've put a big focus on offering programs in different languages. So we've recently started offering story times in Ukrainian, Arabic, and Spanish. So we're just constantly keeping an eye on our community demographics and trying to adapt what we're doing to suit the people that are coming into our libraries. So in 2022, we offered 1,018 programs. Last year, we offered just over 1,700 programs. So we've really increased the number of programs that we're offering. But of course, those numbers don't mean a lot if you don't have people actually coming to the programs. So for program participants, in 2022, we had just over 11,000 people come. We doubled that number with those programs. So last year we had over 20,000 people come to our programs. And I should mention that these numbers are for all three of our libraries. So this is including East, West, and our location in Market Square. And of course, if you're interested in seeing specific numbers if you're more interested in your East Branch library, I'm always happy to share that information with you guys. Items borrowed refers to the physical things in our library that people are borrowing. So books, DVDs, CDs. So one thing that I'm always asked whenever someone says, oh, you work in the library? Do people use the library anymore? Are they still reading books? Of course they are. And these numbers just reflect that. So these are physical books, physical things borrowed from our library. In 2022, we had 185,000 items borrowed. Last year, we had 215,000 items borrowed. So we're getting busier and busier every day, which is really, really wonderful to see. Another thing that our members of our community come to the library quite a bit for is our free public access computers and Wi-Fi. Over the years, I'm sure you can imagine people are bringing their own personal devices. So our Wi-Fi use has exceeded our computer use, but the numbers are going up quite a bit for those. So you can see in these numbers, 12,500 computer uses in 2022, and we're up to 17,000 last year. Same for Wi-Fi uses went up by about 5,000 or so. So yeah, the numbers are going up and up and up, and it's really wonderful. One thing I should mention to you guys that I'm very excited about, in October of last year, our Market Square location resumed our 7-day operations. So when COVID happened, we reduced our hours at Market Square to 5 days a week. But in October of this last year, in 2023, we resumed 7-day operations. So the library in Market Square is now open 7 days a week. And that is also a big driving factor for why these numbers are going up so much. But it's been really, really well received by everybody coming in. I mean, there's a lot of people in our community who might work Monday to Friday, and Saturdays are busy, so maybe Sunday is a better day for them to come to the library. So again, I'll talk about this in some of our goals for the new year, but we're trying to evaluate our programs and spread them out over those 7 days to make sure that they're accessible to as many people as possible. Yeah. And I had to pop in a few pictures here from some of our programs. But we just a note that we don't do all of our services just within the library walls. We do a lot of outreach programs as well. Especially in the summertime, we go to a lot of local daycares, day camps. You'll see us at Queen Square Farmers Market, just promoting the library and the services that we offer to the community. So very quickly, I'll just talk about some of our targets and goals. I have pictures of our 3 locations here for those of you who might not be as familiar with all 3 locations. I mentioned earlier, we've had quite a noticeable increase in the number of newcomers that are coming to our libraries. So we're working quite a bit actually with the St. John Newcomer Center as well, but we're looking at adding more programs specifically for those members of our community, trying to develop our multilingual collections. We have quite a few collections in French and English, but we're looking at developing our collections in other languages as well. And one thing that I will put on your guys' radar, if you've been into the Market Square Library recently, you'll see that we've been moving things around. We've been moving books upstairs, moving things around. Our library board and staff are working to put a capital budget proposal together to present to you guys. We're really hoping to create a new interactive learning space for children and families in the library. So our first floor of the Market Square Library looks a little bit empty right now, but we are putting together a plan to build a new space for children and families and caregivers in the library. We get hundreds and hundreds of children, families, caregivers coming into our doors every week, every year. So we're excited to hopefully develop that space into an excellent learning zone in the library. And very quickly, I will talk about our finances. I can say that the library, we were bang on with our budget for last year. I think we had a deficit of $400. So we were pretty bang on with our budget. You will see with 2024, we asked for a 2% increase, and a large reason why that 2% increase was asked for is because we did resume our 7-day operations at Market Square. So that was just for, there was a little bit of an increase for our commissionaires, our security, general operating things. So that's where that 2% increase came for 2024. But really there was hardly any fluctuations with our budget last year, which I was really quite happy to see. I will just mention we do have one main revenue stream, and it's actually from photocopying and printing. We get a huge amount of people coming to the library to print resumes, access printing services. So we do have a revenue with photocopying, but that literally just goes right back into the operating fund. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to welcome any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Laura. It's excellent report, and I got a couple of lights on here. Councillor Harris, you go first.
Thank you, Chair. Laura, it's great to see you again. I mean, the children piece that you're talking about for future consideration, I couldn't you wouldn't know this, but there's been a number of parents that I've been having conversations with in the uptown. There's just been a real exodus of third places for kids that can really just hang out and be around. And even when it comes just sort of Brunswick Square being, losing some of its tenants and places that used to be in there. But I would see a huge need, along with what you guys are seeing. I'm in there especially in the winter, but I'm in there many times with my kids. Programs that your two gentlemen there that run are just amazing with my kids and the others. And there's a lot of kids running around there anytime I'm in there. So it's a big need, especially in like bad weather and winter, like to have that increased space, I think is a great vision. So I look forward to seeing what your proposal is going to be. But thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hawkins?
Because that's the key to so many things in life. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Your worship?
Library book, and it's about the evolution, right, even of the library since it was inaugurated, and it's really, you're almost like a Department of Social Development to a certain extent, you know, because of the gathering space that you do have. So I don't think people today, because you said, you know, do people still use libraries? People will often ask you, but I don't think people understand how the library fits into a community and how, in a lot of ways, it's almost like the soul of the community because it does a lot of that work, but it's not work that people expect that it's doing. So, but there is a lot of it that's happening there. And like you say, providing at least a warm space and providing some of those other support systems to help people through, you know, if it's like you say, a resume or whatever, you know, going forward. So, yeah, so I just wanted to say thanks for being here today. Appreciate the work that you're doing and the importance of libraries. I think it's something that we need to be hammering out to the public. Plus, we need a cafe in there, or since we have the view.
Yeah, absolutely.
You and your cafes. Laura, I can echo everything that's been said around the table. I mean, it's been a great day for great news, and you're certainly, all those arrows up, every category.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah.
huge, and you're $400. I mean, come on, really? Who does that? But anyway.
We were bang on.
I want to thank you very much for coming in and sharing with us today. Have a
you.
good one.
Councillor
Thanks.
Lowe?
Oh, Councillor Lowe, I'm sorry.
Good. Anyways, just to sum up the day, like, we definitely left the two best presentations to the end. Quite obvious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good comment. That's good, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried. Thank you very much, and I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Lowe. And seconded, Brent, and all in favor, signify by saying aye. Thank you very much, everybody.